y'all. Welcome to the first episode of the Dead Shift Chronicles. I'm your host, Keep Up Red, and this is the first podcast I've ever done. So I'm not sure how to fucking do it, but we're going to wing it. So basically, I want to talk about weird shit. I want to talk about creepy shit, first encounters, supernatural beings, and things of that sort. I really, really want to dive into all things paranormal, all things spooky. This is a place where the coffee's flowing, sleep is for the sane. My therapist says that expressing myself with creativity is a good idea. So tonight we're going to be talking about a local landmark from where I'm from. It's just as famous for its ghosts as it is for its questionable history. Brown Hospital, which is in Morganton, North Carolina. And now if you grew up like around there, like I did, then you already know the place. A big old red brick building built in the 1800s, late 1800s, right? So it's been around for a minute. And like intro to the scene of every horror movie, after dark, it's even worse. It's bad during the day, like just driving by it. Like, oh, that's so pretty. Fucking weird. Okay, yeah, I'm getting off topic, but that's where I want to take it back to. I want to go over some stories that I heard growing up, actual accounts that have been reported. You can find the articles for those accounts. They have murder, eugenics, unexplained deaths that to this day are still unsolved. So let's go ahead and grab our coffee and clock in. Get ready. Let's do it. Okay, so I moved to Ohio, and no, I'm not trying to be funny about it, because apparently that's the punchline to a lot of jokes. I really actually enjoy it up here, actually. But I'm from North Carolina. Grew up in the sticks. I lost my accent, I feel like. My friends would say I didn't, but I feel like I did. So basically, I grew up around the creepy crawlies. My grandma used to say, don't whistle back. And if you know what that means, then you know what that means. Basically, we don't do that shit. We don't do that. It's scary. We had a lot of things that were taught growing up that may and have seemed strange and unusual to my friends here. Like, not whistling outside. Just a few of my friends or ran away from them just because for instance, I worked at a nursing home and they weren't allowed to smoke on the facility. Anyways, I did anyways. So you weren't allowed to smoke on the property, right? So around 3 a.m., we used to sneak out the back and go get some nicotine, right? And one such occasion, I told this new girl, I was like, hey, I know we got to go down to the basement, which is already fucking creepy, and grab stock and stuff. I said, but we're going to sneak out the side because I need a cigarette. And she followed me. We go outside, and there's a big fence that runs along the back of this, and then there's train tracks, and then shit ton of woods goes on and on and on. Right. We got there, I light my cigarette, and then right probably across from the train track, this is fairly close, we heard a very loud whistle. I stopped. I was like, oh, hell no. She was like, "Oh, what was that?" And I was like, you heard that whistle? And she's like, yeah. Yeah, I heard it. And she says, it's 3 in the morning. And I was like, yep, 3 in the morning. About time for me to put the cigarette out and go inside. She whistles back. Me, I look at her, dumbstruck in awe of her stupidity, because I grew up knowing we don't do that. So I say, hey, we don't do that. She said, what? And as soon as she says what, it whistles back. This time it's a little further away. You know what that means. If you don't know what that means, genuinely speaking, fuck, I'm tired. They say that if you hear a mimic or you hear a whistle or anything of the sort, right, the further away it sounds, the closer it is. The closer it sounds, the further away it is. Now, mind you, at the beginning of this conversation, I stated that it sounded fairly close until she whistled. She laughs and whistles back at it. I turn, punch her as hard as I can in the arm, and shove her, flick my cigarette, and run. She yells at me, what the fuck? And right then, faint, so faint you could barely fucking hear it, is a very faint whistle. And it gets so eerily cold, like in the seconds that it took me to get to that door. I unlocked the door, opened it. I shut that bitch right behind me, and you have to unlock it to get in. But I was scared, and I left her ass out there. Okay? Then I ran the 3 flights of stairs up to get to the main floor because hell no. Now, by this time that she comes in, she's fucking pissed. What the fuck? Why would you hit me? What the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, listen, I did not grow up here. Okay, I grew up where if something whistles at you, especially in the dark, especially in the trees, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning, you don't fucking whistle back, and you definitely don't wait to see what happens. Yeah. So that's just a little bit of what I know as far as whistling goes. I don't do that shit. Don't do that shit around me. My friends know that. I'll fucking nope. No. You're inviting spirits in. You're inviting negativity from whatever it is that's trying to get your attention to find you, to come to you, and take your ass. Okay? So my grandma used to say, you want to get got? You want to get got? All right, whistle. Bye. Yeah, no. Fuck that. So we're going to take it back to my roots, back to the creepy. Okay? So Broughton was a hospital that we grew up around. Friends knew about it, family knew about it. Always talked about stories. There was always news articles, something weird, things happening, I remember probably one of the oldest stories that I remember from Broughton was about the Eller twins. And the Eller twins were two sisters who died on like the exact same day. Bobby Joe and Billie Jean Eller. And they had always been together. And it was said that I think it was Bobby Joe was like more of the instigator of the two, and she would be more influential over Billy. And they decided to separate them, put them on two different halls in two different wards, and literally the same night that they were separated. Now, this is supposedly the first time ever in their lives. They're 31 or 32, I believe, that they were separated since birth. So they also suffered from schizophrenia. Um, And I was also reading reports where it said that a lot of the times, like people who suffer from schizophrenia can do things like will themselves to die, which if you look into that will send you down a fucking rabbit hole. And I'm not even fucking playing. That is a legit thing. So basically they separated the two. And I believe it said that they found Bobby Joe or Bobby Jean, whatever. They found her first and then couldn't rule out what happened. No foul play, nothing in her system, anything like that. Um, and they went to go check her sister, and they found her sister the exact same way. And to this day, the case is still unsolved because they have no reason, rhyme, or anything as to why the girls passed. Nobody knows what happened, if it was something that they, again, willed themselves to do or what. But I've heard through accounts of people who I know personally who've worked there or accounts that were reported that since the girls died, like in the wings that they were on, weird shit happens. You'll hear like double whispers or laughing, screaming. There's also accounts that have been told that in the room Bobby Jean was in, patients who reside in that room would have their feet pulled. They would have marks on their wrists or hair pulled or woken by screaming. On Billy Joe's ward, it was more along the lines of like murmuring, laughing, like very faint singing, humming, things of that sort. So it's very, very common for people to associate it with the two, you know? And when I was a kid, that was something we all knew about the twins, that, they died mysteriously because they were separated. And then almost knocked that shit over. But then you also have a lot of things that are kind of trapped here energy wise. Like I believe that a place as old as that, like it's in the bones of the place, like for a place that's been around since 1883, it's a long fucking time. And there was a lot of really horrific things that happened there. You have the eugenics trials, which if you don't know, um, what that is, it's where between like 1930 and 1970, they sterilized people they deemed unwell or different. Mental illness wasn't something that was very much known or cared for around those times. So there were a few states, and Broughton in particular was one of the hospitals that participated in that, who would sterilize people who had developmental disabilities, schizophrenia, depression, even. Like to the point where I think they said it was in upwards around like 7,600 people total were sterilized, and a lot of them were brought in patients. I think in 2002, let's see, I actually wrote it too. I believe that in 2002, 2002, the governor at the time, Easley, the medical archives were buried, basically like non-existent to anyone, um, or access to anyone, right? And then in 2002, Easley officially apologized to the victims of the eugenic trials, being like one of the few states who actually publicly apologized to the victims of those trials. Not really trials, but the victims of what happened, the practices. And I like, ugh, fuck. Anyways, you also have murders. Some of the murders happened between let's see, there was a murder in the 70s that we heard about. That I remember, I believe it was my aunt told me about a scandal that happened there where the Dr. Paul Boyles and the nurse administrator, Betty, went into a room. People heard screaming. They didn't come out of the room. They went in, and both Paul Boyles and Betty were deceased, and it looked to be ruled as a murder-suicide, as a heated affair had gone bad, basically. And it had seemed that Paul took it upon himself to Betty and then himself. So you have that. So not only is this place filled with like abuse, neglect, horrific practices, but you also have it caked in fucking murder. I have my best friend worked there a few years ago. She worked there for a few years. And that she said that she went through the death archives, the death books, and they had one, she said she read one as old as like 1912, where a patient had escaped and they found him propped up against a tree, deceased. No other causes. There was no reason to assume that he took anything. There was no foul play involved. He just propped up against the tree and was dead. And they tried to say that it was due to the inclement weather, but it was summer. like he wouldn't have froze. I don't think that would have had anything to do with his death, but it was not solved. It was just kind of left there. So things like that. And then she said she would see shadows out of the corner of her eye. Okay, blur a little bit. I do not want any unwanted visitors during this episode. Okay, so she would hear screams or whispers, like other people would hear. She said most of the time it wasn't something that she saw, it was more something that she felt. There were a lot of places in the old offices and old parts of the building that just seemed evil, just felt evil to her. And there were reports because they built a whole new hospital. Like the original hospital has since been closed down, I think, since 2019, 2017, because they built an entirely new hospital. So they closed that hospital down and they use it for like office spaces and shit like that, which I'm sure is fucking weird for the people who have offices there, but whatever. They also have these weird, creepy fucking tunnels. Now, mind you, I do not condone breaking and entering, excuse me. When I was 14, maybe, there were tunnels. There are tunnels that run under the facility that would go from one section to like another, to the smokestacks, to, just to transport bodies or whatever. Well, they used to actually set them up as like a haunted attraction near Halloween. And I know that there were a few accounts where when they would do these haunted attractions during the tunnels at Broughton, that like people, like someone suffered like a heart attack. And then I think even someone had like severe, like something happened with their liver or something. Like it was weird. You just heard weird things. Okay. And it was never, they only did it for a couple years. It didn't last very long. So I took it upon myself because I was curious, because I really, really, really wanted to go in these tunnels. And if you know me in real life, you know I'm chicken shit, okay? I'm very So not so much that I'm chicken shit. It's more along the lines is like, for me, like personally, my mom says it's called clairvoyant and clairaudient. So once spirits in the area, if I pay attention to them, it's like once they find out, they bombard me. And it took me a long time, especially as a kid, to figure out that I could cut it off or I could tell them to stop. It took me a long time to figure that out. So for a long time when I was a child, I would have a lot of issues. Now, to be fair, it wasn't like too bad because a lot of the times it was just people that were just curious. People, it was just spirits that were curious or thought that they could get a message across. And when I was a kid, it was very confusing. As I got older, I understood it more that, like my imaginary friends used to be living. And I also grew up with very understanding and reassuring people in my life who guided me, talked to me, showed me how to accept it or not accept it. I feel like I was always like drawn to Broughton in a sense. It was always intriguing to me. I always wanted to know more. Drove by it every day, whether it was to school or even to work or just in general, like to do anything, because it literally sat in like the middle of fucking Morganton. Like you weren't missing that shit. Like that was a big ass fucking facility, big building, and it was in operations up until they opened the new one. So I knew a lot of people that worked there. We heard accounts. It's just something that was a very big part of my childhood. And I almost wonder if that's what put me in psych. Like not physically in psych, but like working, working with mental health shit. Okay. I'm like fucking drawn to it. And that's not that I want to be. Fucking hate psych, but I'm just good at it. I'm I'm just really good at fucking up people, like with some hard truths. No, I'm not really. Like, I don't fuck people up. I don't know how to talk. Anyways, I digress. So let's get back to it. Okay. So, there were also accounts where while they were building, which is where I left off, by the way, ADHD makes me go that way. Anyway, during renovations, things like that, people would see people would see a woman in white on the third floor, usually in the windows or like the appearance of a female in the window. And then people would check it out, nothing would be there. Or blood curdling screams when people are working on the roof or on specific halls and no patients are down there. Or the hall has been closed down and they still hear the screams, or it's like a residual energy almost. And it makes me sad, like thinking about that like some of these spirits are just stuck in this cycle of repressed abuse, torture. Like it's sad, and it's interesting, like for me, like I curious about it. But then when you dig deep into it, you realize like how far we've come with like mental health too, because I work in the healthcare field and generally work with people, adults or elderly who have developmental disabilities. So I feel like digging through this and like reading about it and stuff like that has actually made me like very sad to know that like the people that I take care of, they were never understood back then, like never given the opportunity to be understood. They were just deemed different. And all that hurt and torment and the energy from it, like just like festers there and stays there. So it's just something to think about, like have you guys ever had those experiences? Like if you're from North Carolina, like from Morganton area, and you either worked at Broughton or were around Broughton, do you have like your own experiences? Like I would love to hear people send me their like accounts, like just so I can dig into it more. Aside from like Broughton, we also have other things that I grew up around. Like we went over like the whistling and stuff like that, but that was something that was drilled into our head. The Appalachian, do not fight me on how I fucking say that, because I know some of you are going to come in these comments and be like, why do you say it like that? I'm from there. Okay. That's how I say it. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains. Okay. And that's just what we were told. I grew up right off of Brown Mountain. My grandparents lived there at the bottom of that mountain. I mean, we could go into Brown Mountain Lights and the shit that you would see on that mountain. Like, there are a lot of things that I did. I absolutely loved exploring the woods as a kid, but I was back inside by dusk. It wasn't getting darker than, no. Because you don't know. Like, you see things. And I mean, see things as in, like, physically see something that you don't know what it is. And I had an incident as a child, which, if you haven't figured out that this episode is mainly about me and what I experienced growing up, I have a shit ton of stories. Before I learned how to shut it the fuck down, the noise, right? I was babysitting. I was babysitting a 3 and 2-year-old at the time, and my aunt and her best friend, they would have me watch the kids so they could go meditate, talk to nature, get a feel. Like, I grew up in a very Wiccan household, so I grew up a little different. My grandmother was a Baptist, so that was weird. But then my aunt and my uncle who raised me, my uncle was Baptist, but my aunt was Wiccan. So I grew up in a very free feeling household, very much so like be who you want to be who you feel, live light, love, like kind of shit, right? So I would go over there and watch her best friend's kids while they would go meditate. It could take anywhere from an hour to fucking 8 hours. It just depends on what goddesses and gods would tell them, and what they would feel during these meditations, which I learned a lot about when I got older too, which was really great. So I'm watching her kids, and I think it was like right around when The Hills Have Eyes came out, and the kids were asleep. The daughter was in the bed, she was 2, and the 3-year-old was with me. He was on the couch and he was asleep. And I think I'm like 11, maybe, at this time, I believe. I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and there's a big sectional, and I'm sitting in the corner where the sectional splits, right? And right beside that corner is an air conditioner that's sticking in the window. And I have the lights off. This is probably like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And we sitting there, he's asleep on me, just chilling, whatever. And then you hear bang, 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 bang on the air conditioner. I jumped up. I'm 11. I'm in this house by myself. There's no adults. And I'm straddling the edge of the couch. Kid's still knocked out. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? All right. I'm like, that didn't just happen. But I felt the vibrations from it. Like, it scared me that bad. So I paused the movie as well. I was fucking 11 and I was scared. Try to call my aunt on a trusty, dusty house phone. Okay. Because, well, I was 11. Try to call my aunt, no answer. Because they go off grid, right? There was not going to be an answer. They didn't have service. I was like, whatever. All right. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I'm trying to reassure myself nothing happened. Nothing happened. So I get comfortable, start the movie, grab the kid, scoot him closer to me, sitting there, and within like 5 minutes of the movie starting, bang, 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 bang. I'm not a looker. Okay. First signs of fucking uncomfortableness. I'm out. Fight or flight, bitches. I'm not fighting. Not supernatural. I'll fight a bitch. All right. But I ain't fighting a ghost. Okay. I ain't doing it. All right. But I was scared. Peeked out the blinds. Nothing's there. So I get scared. I wake this kid up. I'm like, hey, get up, you little shit. I'm scared. And he's like, what? I'm like, oh, you gotta watch this movie with me. So I turn off the scary movie and I put on like fucking Transformers or some shit like that. And he's sitting up and he's talking and he's talking, and I get a really bad sense of like a burning feeling. Like you ever had like an Indian burn? You ever play that fucking shit? I felt that on my back and I was real uncomfortable. I was like, what the fuck is this? I didn't say anything. I just kind of tried to shift myself a little bit. And I just remember out loud, I said, please, whatever you are, please just leave us alone. Bang, 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 bang. The kid looks at me and he says, I was like, no, the bad man, the bad man. I was like, oh, fuck, of course there's a fucking bad man. I was like, where's the bad man live? He said, outside. I was like, does the bad man want to get in? Bro, I'm fucking tearing up right now because I'm fucking thinking about this shit. I was so fucking scared. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, man can't get in. Bad man can't get in. I'm sitting at this point, like on the edge of the couch, just because I don't know what to do. I have kids that I have to fucking protect, and you can't really do much when you can't see it. So all I could do was pray that whatever it was would leave us alone. So I just kept saying, like, just protect the kids, protect the kids, protect the kids. I felt a heaviness sit down. beside me, between me and the window. And I turned, and there's a full apparition of a man. And he doesn't say anything. I'm too stunned to speak because I could feel the weight of him go into the couch. And I turn and I look, and Dale, like the kid, has fallen asleep on my lap. And I just realized that, well, my dog wants to be part of this video. Kobe, stop it. Quit. All right. So, okay. Well, my first guest is Kobe, which you can't see. This man sits down, and he looks like he's probably wearing, like, I know it's like a plaid, like button-up shirt, very clean cut. Looks like maybe like 60s, 70s type attire, like hair slick, like done right. And I'm looking at him, and I get like a sense of calm kind of come over me. And like I took a breath and I said, hello. Everything was good up until this point. He turns, and half of his face is gone. Like from here, all of this is gone. I didn't see that because all I saw was his profile and this half of his face. So when he turned to me and smiled, like a reassuring smile, I saw everything else. I screamed, snatched the kid up, run to their room. There was no more banging. The house seemed calm, but within like 10 minutes, my aunt and her friend, the children's mother, walked in. And I'm huddled in a corner of bunk beds with these two kids because I'm fucking terrified. And I see my aunt, I run out, and I just start crying because I'm so shocked by what I saw. And it wasn't that I felt like the guy was going to hurt me. It actually felt the complete opposite. I felt very safe um, when he showed up. So I'm explaining them everything. I said, by the time my back was burning, and I started like just over and over saying, please protect the kids, please protect the kids. This guy shows up, and I described the guy. And my aunt's friend says, his house in the early like 50s, 60s. A couple lived here with their two young kids. They had a boy and a girl around the same age as my kids. And one day the husband came home from work, and waiting for him in the driveway was his wife and a man she had been having an affair with. And I can't even remember like the names and dates of this stuff. Like it's been so long. I bet if I looked into it, I could probably find the information for it. But the man she was having an affair with shot the husband in the face, and he died in the driveway. It was really gruesome, really horrific. But she said that she feels like he's very, very protective over the kids because there was also something that was in or outside around that house just because of where it was at. It was in like this freaking dead end area, like backwoods, middle of nowhere, near a fucking old holler where we would go fucking jumping off fucking rocks into fucking, fucking great lake and shit that was over there. But there was something bad there. And she showed me a collection of photos where it was the first snow, so the kids were outside playing, and it was dark, and there's orbs all in the trees, like white orbs. But then there's a red orb, and it's very, very far, faint off in the distance. And each photo, the kids are playing, the orb is getting closer, this red orb. By the time it gets to, like, the orb is huge in this photo by this time. But by the time it gets closer to the kids, there's another orb that has come in, and it's bright blue. And she swears up and down that it was this guy protecting our kids, because in the few photos that followed it, red orb was going away, the blue orb was surrounding the children. So by the time we finished explaining everything, that we're talking about everything, I told him, he showed me his face, and my aunt was like, is that why you're so upset? I was like, yeah, because it's one thing to see something in movies like that, but like to see it so clear and so vividly next to you, it's traumatic. And she said that sometimes spirits don't know how they died, or unintentionally show you themselves as how they were when they died. And you have to set boundaries, like build this type of wall around you, to set boundaries for spirits. If you do allow them to come and communicate with you, then you need to let them know that there are certain things that you don't want to see. So since then, I've had a few encounters where things have just popped up out of nowhere and been like, ah, look at me. And I'll be like, fuck no, get the fuck out, But a lot of the times it's me working with trying to explain to them that there's not a whole lot that I can do except for listen to you, to your story, or even be validating for them. Learned a lot about moving from North Carolina. North Carolina, there's a lot of old hauntings, like a lot. But the more you come up here, I realized that in Ohio, it's loud. And I don't mean like the hustle and bustle of like the city and shit like that. I live outside of Cleveland, so I'm like a good 45 minutes away from Cleveland. Anyways, it's loud as in spirits. There are so many. And it's like as soon as they can grasp on to any kind of inkling that you know that they're there or you can sense them, they fucking are on your ass. My mom laughs at me because when I first moved up here, I was like, oh, you got to take me to these cemeteries. You got to take me to these cemeteries. I wanted to record it. I wanted to ghost hunt. I fucking love that shit, you know? Like, and I've been to a few places, which we'll talk about in like other episodes of places that I've been to in Ohio that are fucking weird. And if you haven't been there, you should fucking check it out if you're into that kind of shit. But she used to make fun of me because I could step into a cemetery all of 5 feet and be pushed the fuck out because either something was bad there or something was trying to stop me. Like I have a good sense of like energies that try to protect once they know. It's like they sense that something is trying and then they try to come in and cut it off. I don't know. We'll get into that another time too. Like people who like mediums or psychics and like abilities and stuff like that. Like I would love to talk to people who are sensitive and who have experienced things like that and kind of like pick their brains and stuff. So like I feel like maybe like my next episode I'm hoping to find someone who, which I have an idea. I want to bring someone on who is a psychic or a medium or like clairvoyant in a way and talk to them and kind of pick their brain and see what they've experienced like living here. And maybe we can touch base on like some accounts that I've experienced or seen here. I also want to dive into supernatural beings. Like I have a story that someone has given me and told me that I could talk about in here, which I'm probably going to say for a separate episode, with this being my first and I'm trying to get my bearings and stuff, about incubuses and succubuses, which I fucking believe in that shit. If you don't, look it up, because first-hand accounts, I don't care what the fuck you say, like that shit's fucking weird. I believe in that shit, and I'm gonna talk about their story and like read it to you guys. I want to go over people's like depictions of skinwalkers. First-hand account that I had literally within the first 2 weeks of me living in Ohio. I had an incident, all right, a weird one. It scared me so bad, I will not go back to this place. I won't even, it's for a while, I wouldn't even drive down the road past it. If I have to, then I will. But it's going to creep the fuck out of my friends. But they've already known, they have already heard the story, then they already know. But if you guys enjoyed this, I know I was kind of all over the place. I'm just trying to get my bearings. I want to have open conversations, discussions, read stories. I love researching these things and talking about it. I'm nervous, never done this before, but I really hope that you enjoyed it and you want to follow me and go on these adventures with me. Maybe we can even go out and ghost hunt and record it. I do have a story about the Madison Seminary, and I have picture proof of what I found there, which we might throw into the next episode. I don't know yet. But if you liked what I'm doing, if you enjoyed it, if you weren't too turned off by my voice or whatever, I don't fucking care. If you enjoyed it, if you liked where I'm going with it, if you want to see more, then follow me, share it, comment. Please send me your experiences. You can send me emails at Dead Shift Chronicles. I would love to hear any accounts that you have, any investigations you've went on, any stories that you have. I would absolutely love it. So check me out, hype me up, and follow me, motherfuckers.